Guess what today is?
It's Wilbon Day. Woo-hoo! Chicago native Michael Wilbon, host of Pardon The Interruption with Waddle and Silvy on ESPN Chicago.
It's on Tuesday now, 5 o'clock. That's when we talk to our friend Michael Wilbon on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotline. He's brought to you by Waddle's guys over at Hawk.
HawkAuto.com, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Subaru, Cadillac, Mazda, and VW, all in one place. HawkAuto.com, where Chicagoland saves big.
All right, very general question for you, Michael, and you'll have to interpret what the word means. But I polled this question: are the Cubs a good team? Yes or no?
Not right now.
Thank you.
Not right now, they're not. I mean, what have they lost? Like 7 out of 8 or something like that?
Yeah, they're at
they've lost
500.
8 of their last 10. Yeah, they're 2-8 their last 10.
8 of their last 10. Okay, no, not right now. Not right now. They're not very good. They're struggling. They can't hit at all. They've wasted, out of those 8 losses, they've wasted, how many with pretty good starting pitching for at least 6 innings. So I don't think, no, you can't say they're a good team right now. Maybe they'll become one again, but not at the moment.
Mike, at what point of the season, in the baseball season, do you get nervous, angry, pissed, whatever the word you want to use?
August 1st, unless they just go into such a hole
Right.
that they have no way to recover. If they go into a hole because they have no way to recover, then that's a whole problem. If they go into a hole, the question is, what are they going to do about hitting? Where are they ranked right now?
Ooh, I got some stats.
Where are they ranked in hitting right now?
I have them at 20.
Have you guys looked at?
I
we have it.
this on my notepad. 26th in average, 18th
26th in average,
18th in on base percentage, 23rd in slugging percentage, and overall 22nd in OPS.
It's not as bad. It seems worse. It seems worse than that, right? I mean, it seems like you're going to say, I thought you were going to tell me 25th through 30th on everything.
Well, Mike, let me ask you another question about where they're at. What does it say? I don't know how you feel about managers in general, but what does it say about Craig Counsell that the Milwaukee team that he left is in first place despite losing a number of quality things, and the team he's taken over now finds itself at 500?
Well, there could be a transition. I mean, baseball season's long. I've learned from my years of covering baseball not to make too many crazy over-the-top judgments, and so that could be part of this. They may have to. I know they got out to a good start, and teams usually, even good teams, I don't mean great teams, even good teams usually go through a stretch where they may lose, 11 of 15, and then they can right themselves. So can the Cubs do that? It seems like they have the starting pitching to do it. Can they do that? And is this that? So if we're diagnosing what's wrong with the Cubs, is there something more than that? Is there something that's going to take roster moves to cover? It may, because every night, I've been, of course, I'm covering NBA playoffs, and so I can't tune in, fully to the Cubs at this point. But every time I look up, they're down something to nothing, and they're not even having battles, and you wonder if, is there something fundamental wrong here with the personnel? Is this something they can pull their way out of through transition when you have a new manager? But I'm not into the whole Craig Counsell thing. I thought that was a weird move anyway, because I like David Ross, but I thought it was a weird move. Let me just say it weird. I'm not going to say it was a bad move. It's too early to say that unless people are just into venting. But man, it doesn't look good right now.
Yeah, does not at all. Michael, on another note, I was very, very surprised when I opened up Twitter. I forget which day it was, whether it was yesterday, because obviously with a holiday weekend. But when we all got the news that Bill Walton had passed away, I don't think any of us were ready for that because, he's not that old, and I don't think anyone really knew that he was diagnosed with cancer or was sick.
Well, that was known by people close to him and people who, that was,
Did we lose him?
I can hear you guys.
Okay, well, we're getting you back now. So go ahead. So the people close knew him.
People knew that. People knew. I mean, it wasn't unknown. It wasn't something that was talked about. But you heard things, and people close to him knew. It was just too bad, man. Because wow, Bill Walton, such a wonderfully important figure in the history of basketball, college and pro, college and the NBA.
And it was a guy who did his job as a broadcaster in a very unique and authentic fashion as well, which I think, like most people, Mike, I remember seeing him maybe play a little bit with the Trailblazers and then when he was on the Boston team. But those are years and years. Most people know Bill by, his personality and how he was calling games and the broadcaster he was.
Well, the 86 season is his last real contribution as a basketball player, because in his last season he didn't play. And so he didn't, he was done after that. Let me tell you this. So I talk about buying a satellite dish. I bought a dish to see Michael Jordan play every game. I bought a satellite dish in 1994. I even had some trees cut down
Mr.
in
T
my
over
neighborhood
here.
in order to do it. And then then I was like, wait a minute, Sunday too. Oh, I can watch the Bears every week, every Sunday. So but the third reason, the thing I got, the unexpected, just unbridled joy from having a dish was being able to watch the Clippers on whatever they were on at the time, Fox Sports 2 West or something, who knows, and to be able to listen to Bill Walton on Clippers games. Oh, my God. And then he and Steve Snapper Jones were so good together. People have no idea because it wasn't national TV and it wasn't a team that anybody cared about. This is the Kawhi Leonard Clippers. This is the Clippers for real, the awful Clippers forever. And Bill Walton was so funny. And you either loved him or hated him. I loved him. And Don and I would get in arguments. Don was like, what are you doing? I said, I got to listen to Bill Walton. So especially late at night in the East Coast, games that started at 10:30, I could turn on at 11:30 and listen to Bill in the second half. I loved it. And so then when I got to work with Bill years later, I totally intimidated because Bill Walton's only 5 years older than me. But, his impact, his reach, you know what his record was in college as a player?
We probably lost one game?
Well, he was 3-time player of the year, right?
Yeah, 86-4.
86-4. It's incredible.
The 4 losses were by a total of 13 points. 13! Are you kidding me? That's how great he was. There's two players who, for the first 50 years of college basketball, mattered more than anybody else. And you can really go through the whole history of it because nobody matters anymore because when they're being recruited. Because LeBron wasn't recruited much because he went straight from high school. Those two players are Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton. That's it. That's the list. You know what? Maravich. I guess Pete Maravich. But Maravich didn't really get recruited because he just went and played for his father. So I don't remember that much of that. But I remember Walton playing for UCLA, and just you couldn't wait to see him get to the NBA. And then, of course, the injuries reduced him. If you do a list of the all-time great players who never really were able to fulfill all the promise from college, Bill Walton is on that team. Bill Walton, Derrick Rose, even though they both won an MVP. They each won an MVP of the league. Derrick Rose is on that list. David Thompson is probably on that list. I think of those guys, Phil Ford. Those guys come to mind because they were dominant talents and singular in some ways. Bill Walton, if you look at these clips right now, there's clips of Bill Walton shooting a left-handed hook. Is undoubtedly Kareem influenced Bill Walton because Kareem influenced everyone of the generation. Bill Walton shot this mini hook. He was shooting it off glass with his left hand. He's a right-handed player. So talented. Best passer, maybe the best passing big man. If Bill played in today's game where centers were encouraged to do it, 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds old, what guys like Joker are encouraged to do, then Bill Walton he would average 10 assists a game. And it was amazing what that Portland team did and what he did when he came. He's at the end of his career, essentially, old and broken down when he's with the Celtics. And he still was a sixth man of the year, and he could have averaged 20 points a game then.
I was telling Waddle this earlier that, when you're a young child, and even the older you get, there are still a couple of things when you're a young child that you still have a vivid memory of. You have these snapshots of your young self. And there are three things as a sports fan that I still remember like I was a kid. One was walking up the ramp the first time I saw Wrigley Field. And
that's a good one. You and I will share that one forever.
Yeah, and we watched these games on GN in black and white. So when I walked through on the ramp and the green hit me, it took my breath away. Even as a 6-year-old or whatever I was. So I remember that. I remember my grandfather telling me two things. One was, we're going to see a guy fly today, Mark. We're going to the Chicago Stadium to see Dr. J, his nickname, the Doctor. And I'm like, wow. And he goes, he flies through the air. And then the other time was when he took me to see Bill Walton on the Portland Trailblazers play Artis Gilmore and the Bulls.
I was at that game.
And
it was one home game. It was a mini series, right?
Right.
It was 2 out of 3.
Didn't they lose at the last second or something like that? And
there was a game in there that the Bulls should have won.
Yeah,
but yes, I remember that.
And I remember this big guy, and we had floor seats because my grandfather was a inaugural season ticket holder, and this was sitting on the floor before it was like sitting on the floor because it wasn't that expensive. And he was this big guy with this floppy hair and this headband, and he was standing at the scorer's table, and before the tip-off, he was just jumping up and down. Jumping. Like, who is this big guy? And it was larger than life when you were a kid. And that was my first time I'd ever watched this bigger than life guy named Bill Walton. And who knew that decades and decades and decades I would be watching him on television.
Well, I mean, look, I was at that game. I was at that playoff game, and I remember thinking that, wow, this Bulls team, what year was that? Was that a team with Mickey Johnson? I'm trying to think of who was on the Bulls then. Besides Artis, was Reggie Theus on that? No, that was too early for Theus. But I remember Walton playing on that team, and they were so great. There's a book I would recommend to anybody, a book that influenced my life greatly in terms of what I do professionally, and it's called Breaks of the Game by David Halberstam. I think it's the greatest sports book ever written. And in it, David Halberstam, who, my God, covered Vietnam, he covered wars. To me, I wanted to be Mike Royko and David Halberstam. And David Halberstam took a season, and he traveled with the Trailblazers. I would say it's the best study of a team and its players, coaches, staff, culture, context that I've ever read. I'm making the case it's the best sports book ever. And in it, if you want Walton, you want to learn about Bill Walton. But that team was so different. Bill Walton, and it was a study of race and culture. And Bill Walton was a complex character. Bill Walton marched for civil rights, got arrested for protest. He named his son after Maurice Lucas, his black teammate in Portland in the 70s. So when you hear Luke Walton named after Maurice Lucas, his teammate. And Maurice Lucas was the enforcer. A Charles Oakley-like player, a half generation, they probably overlapped a little bit before Oak. And except Lucas probably averaged 20 points a game, and he was key on that championship team. But I would recommend to anybody, if you're interested, if all this stuff about Bill Walton whets your appetite, then read Breaks of the Game by David Halberstam. Yeah. It's completely riveting.
It was 77 that year of the NBA playoffs that I was there. I was 6 years old.
Well, that was it. That was the year they were defending champ. No, that was the year they went on to win the championship then. So they beat the Bulls in the first round. The Bulls were their first victim?
Yep. Mm-hmm. They took the best of 3, 2 games to 1. Best
So they
of
beat
three.
the Bulls best of 3, and then they went on to win the championship. They beat the Sixers after going down 2-0,
crazy?
and that wound up being the reason that the Sixers had to have a motto. They were so embarrassed, so shaken after losing that series to Bill Walton and Dave Twardzik and Bob Gross and Maurice Lucas and Corky Calhoun and these guys that nobody recognized the names of me anymore. They were so shaken by it that Julius Erving and the Sixers, they came up with a motto. And the motto was, "We owe you one." And it was basically speaking to their fans who were so disgusted that the Sixers didn't win. We owe you one. And they became known as the We Owe You One Sixers. Well, then they lose the next year and the next year and the next year. And they lose. They lose for like 6 years. And it becomes, how many are they going to owe us? And even the great Julius Erving was saddled by this until they got Moses Malone. And they went 4-5-4. And they beat Bird and they beat Magic and they beat everybody. But Bill Walton was the source of great consternation in Philadelphia about winning that series, that championship series, after being down 2-0.
How about the passing of the torch from Kareem to Bill Walton in UCLA basketball lore?
Oh, it was crazy.
I mean,
because you think, Tommy, that's a great point. You think you're never going to see anything like Kareem, because Kareem 8-2, which again, when people start talking about somebody in college, I just go, stop. Did he go 88-2? 88-2. He lost 2 games. Maybe it was 88-3. He did 2 or 3. I think it was 2. And then you go, okay, like you could never see anything like this again. And then Bill Walton goes 86-4. In the game against Memphis State that he played in the Final Four. These are, and I grew up on that. That's the basketball that I came of age on. And then, and those are the games, by the way. Bill Walton makes March Madness what it was because of the performances he had. And then he lost to David Thompson. I mean, again, when you talk about the Mount Rushmore of players who didn't quite become in the NBA what they were in college, Walton and David Thompson are on that list. They're on that mountain. And David Thompson beat Bill Walton. And so people, now people don't want to, they think everything they've seen is the greatest thing ever. And they want to tell you the UConn is the greatest. Stop, please stop. Please, just stop.
By the way, tonight, is it going to be all over for the Timberwolves?
Yes. I think it will be. Could they get one game? I said I give them a 30% chance tonight, which is a little more than a puncher's chance. But the problem is that team is built to beat Denver, and they did it. But they're not built to beat Dallas. And you have to change philosophically what you do. And Karl Anthony Towns, who is not a player to really take on Kyrie and Luka, he has to play too big a part, and he's just not playing well. And his own coach, Finch, shook his confidence by taking him out for 9 minutes in game 2. And then they want to know why he didn't shoot the ball confidently in game 3. What? Do you know your own player? Do you know Karl Anthony Towns is a pretty sensitive kid? Do you know that? What are you doing? And so Minnesota's made unbelievably stupid mistakes, but yet they lost these games by a possession. So could they win tonight? Yeah, they could. I don't think they will. But I think that series is over. And in Boston, Dallas would be one hell of a series.
If Dallas advances tonight, the game 1 of the NBA Finals won't be until a week from Thursday. Is that because of their multi-purpose facilities and scheduling?
No, it has nothing to do with that. I know the answer to this because, like you, Tommy, I said to somebody, a couple of somebodies who were in the position to know, I said, "What? There used to be a move-up date. What the hell happened?" And you know what it is? It's international. The international relationship between the NBA and the world. This isn't the NFL, which is a domestic product. And when they say, "Here's what we're going to do," it's only the domestic agenda which rules the NFL, despite having a game here and there in London and Munich, whatever they want to do. The NBA has many, 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 many more eyeballs internationally than domestically. I think I've told you guys the story. I've been in Asia and been in China and said to journalists who cover sports, do you know who Tom Brady is? And they look at me like I have two heads. They have no idea who Tom Brady is because the NFL doesn't have a footprint where they are in China. But they watch LeBron James live. They watched Kobe Bryant live. In the morning, 8 o'clock, Turner or ESPN, they watch these things in real time. Tens of millions of people. So those outlets are covering the NBA Finals. And you can't just say to them, we're going to move up date. You're coming from Beijing. That matters in the NBA. Doesn't matter in the NFL. So the league has to deal with that reality. Why would you then offend and make it harder for international outlets? And by the way, it's not just Asia. It's not just China. It's Eastern Europe. Remember, when and this is going to come as a surprise, guys, I think, to people when they look at the U.S. Olympic team. I don't think the U.S. Olympic team is going to breeze. The U.S. Olympic team may win men's basketball, but are they going to breeze? I don't see that. And I've been asking people about that for the last 2 weeks as well. And there are people who think that Canada's going to give the U.S. trouble, Spain, Germany. Like, I don't know how many teams can give the United States team trouble, but this ain't going to be a breeze from people that you talk to who know what they're talking about when it comes to international basketball.
I agree.
So anyway, back to the original question, the international nature of the NBA and the NBA Finals is a huge, huge dynamic, and it's a reason why you can't do a move up. You can't, I'm told, just doing the reporting, you cannot do a move up because it doesn't work for an enormous segment of your media covering your championship event.
All right.
Michael, good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, you guys, be good.
There you go. There's Michael Wilbon every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. All right, the good, the bad, the dirty coming up.